Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're back. It's the Family EV podcast. I'm John, and this is Joe from EV Motoring. How you doing, Joe?
Doing pretty good. Tax season is approaching rapidly. How are you doing?
You've got tax season. We've got the winter season. We are being deluged right now. It is. I'm looking down. The reservoir that makes up raging waters is truly raging right now. As I look down from the hill. My pants are wet, not due to any personal sanitary issues, but because somebody dumped a load of demolition stuff on the the country roads that I live in. I was fishing for names because they were dumb enough to put Amazon packages in there, and I fell into the frigging creek, which for the first time in the 10 years I've lived here has water in it. So yeah, it's a day. It's a day. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got, and by the way, to our listener and or viewer, I'm going to let you know in advance what we're going to talk about, so you can decide whether you can do, if there's something better you need to do with your time. We can respect you. We got a little bit of VW news. We're going to talk about. We're going to get Joe's thoughts on Joe's Tesla, and then we're going to talk about time. We're not going to talk about time travel, but we are going to talk about time and value. So, with and if there's anything else Joe wants to add in, we'll do that as well. So I had to, as you know, the whole country, whole United States is getting weather right now in all its forms. It was 72 on the East Coast the other day. Meanwhile, here in Northern California, we are getting 10 years worth of rain. I think Tesla might well be the next thing they should consider building in Fremont is an arc. But see what I did there? Little electric joke, little arc electric joke. You see, Joe. You see? I won't have the opportunity to use that joke again for years. So we, I lost my thread already. That's
Well,
amazing.
something I
Go
can
on.
quickly throw in on that is, frequently when there's a hurricane or extreme weather that knocks out power, people are quick to point at, well, how are you going to charge your electric car? Probably about the same way that you're going to fill up your gas tank. If there's no power, you will not be filling up your gas tank either.
No, it's to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. And in fact, I think when it comes to power, with this generation of vehicles and the ability for them to power the house, and that is it ridiculous that you would use a massive 100 kilowatt battery to power your house? Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah. Should you do it? Absolutely. We carry water in buckets. Batteries are no different. I look forward to the opportunity, especially with when we have fire season around here. But oh yeah, Volkswagen was where we were starting. So because of all the rain, it has disturbed all of the road debris. So I picked up a puncture the other day.
In the
It was
Volkswagen? I
yeah,
thought
on
that
the
was in for
ID4.
repairs already.
No, it went in on that went in yesterday.
Oh,
So I will be without the ID4 for the next 9 days. Apparently, that's their estimate right now. They have all the parts. They have all the parts they ordered. Hopefully, they because they haven't taken it apart yet. They'll see what else they need afterwards. But they've got all the big stuff ready to go. Um, so so we'll see what happens with that. But no, I picked up a puncture, and the tire needed replacing anyway, and so I had to go to I couldn't find. There was none going to come into stock with any of the major tire places for at least a week and a half. The dealership had one, so I called in, and found out that the ID Buzz, which I'm in love with. I really wish the ID Buzz would come out sooner. But the allocation that will come to North America in 23, 5,000. That's it. I and apparently they're not budging off that. I've got to say that if you bring such a small number, that's going to cause discontent uh, more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure, if our listener follows ICE vehicles, but this is basically what just happened with the Civic Type R. We have Civic Type R's right now selling for 50 or 60 grand for a $40,000 hatchback. If there's 5,000 of them, the market's gonna go crazy.
Well,
So
it's not just the market's going to go crazy, but I think at this point, I don't think the market will go crazy. We're in a different situation to where we were. Money's more expensive. Demand is a little bit more depressed than it was. But I just think it's going to cause. I think people are just going to get pissed off. 5,000 is not that many. When you look at the number of dealers, they just, they have to invest the same amount of money whether they sell one or whether they sell 50 a month.
I wonder how they're going to do this. Are they going to do the reservation process the same as the ID4? Hopefully.
Apparently they're canceling it.
Oh, it's just going to go to dealers?
They said cancel the reservation system. I don't think
because Chevy's kind of playing games with that they took reservations for the Blazer, but the Equinox is just going straight to dealers.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I was just the main thing was 5,000. What's annoying is what they're considering in the full first year of production, of American production. So this, I'm assuming, is going to be the long wheelbase, bigger battery version that's been spoken about but not seen. They're still only talking about 20,000 in the first year.
Okay, so it's going to be the first 5,000 is going to be from Europe, and then they're going to start making it in
all coming from Europe. They're not building this in North America. It's going to be built here in Europe and China. You just have to wonder. So first of all, that means the tax credit won't be applicable.
Although we suspect the price might be pretty close to the cap on the tax credit.
Well, it won't matter. You're not going to get it. Yeah. And not that you need a tax credit to sell Teslas, to sell EVs. Look at all the Teslas that have been sold in the past 2.5 years.
And I believe they're all coming fully loaded, right? Is the plan? They're all
there's the 5,000, then there's the 20,000. The 5,000s will no doubt be a first edition thing, and so they'll just come, as they are.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if there'll be more choices after that. I don't know. This was what was just said to me. This gives me two questions in my mind, though, Joe. This is built on the MEB platform, okay? A platform that they are using in Chattanooga. How difficult is it? And I know the answer is very, but obviously they have to put a value on it. But surely they could just be making the chassis, the MEB chassis in Chattanooga, and apply a different shell and that. They're not. A lot of the exterior elements, we know this because of Kyle's videos, like the trunk, the what do you want to call it? The trunk door, the hatch door, is completely made off-site. It's made by Magna. So I just look, cleverer people than me are responsible for this, but I just think, I've been thinking about larger. I've got a road trip which we'll talk about in a minute coming up, and I'm like, you know what? I just wish we had that thing. That an SUV isn't bigger. It's about space.
It's something I actually pondered recently for unrelated reasons. I wondered, what is the cost of shipping? Because I don't know if you're familiar, but the regular Hyundai Tucson and Kia Sorento are made in Georgia, Alabama, somewhere there. But if you buy the plug-in, and the regular hybrid is also made there with the regular gas ICE vehicles. But if you buy the plug-in hybrid, that comes from Korea. I find it interesting that they chose that it's more cost-effective to ship the vehicle all the way from Korea than to just plop the battery pack in Georgia, Alabama. Especially now that the tax credit is on the line, that you definitely have a lot easier time pushing sales if people are getting $7,500 off of their Sorento plug-in.
I think it's also worth mentioning that the tax credit works two ways, although it's not meant to. The tax credit is there to incentivize the creation of jobs and manufacturing in this country. and every place where they do manufacturing and create jobs, they get a tax. They get a tax credit, whether it's indefinite, uh, you know, no taxes, infrastructure being built for them, rail lines, training money, whatever. Um, the amount of money that the states throws into this is, in of itself, substantial. Anyway, let's
That's
not.
actually why that amazes me that when Tesla chose to put the factory in Texas, that they didn't get the ability to sell Teslas in Texas fixed in that whole
Um,
process.
I I'm leaving Texas alone. You know why? Um, uh, so that was one interesting piece of news. The other thing that I find interesting is I was rewatching um, one of Bjorn's videos, his long distance trips in the ID Buzz, and saw that MEB platform vehicle is charging at 180 kilowatts. And we know that there's a software upgrade for the current ID4, the one that I had, or have, and the one that you had, the first gen European built one, which will take them to 135. But what I've not seen is whether the Chattanooga ones are doing the 180 speeds. We saw some numbers from, being reported accidentally from Electrify America things. I think Brandon saw a Chattanooga prototype being charged, and it was pushing some big numbers. But you've seen the same things as me. I just find it weird that this isn't being talked about.
So I just sold my floor mats from when I had my ID4 today, and the guy had 3 weeks ago. He took delivery of his 23, and
Mm-hmm.
he was explaining how the whole process was. It was supposed to be a 22, supposed to be a 22, then got pushed to a 23, which obviously he worked out with, in my opinion, a huge benefit of, because you're getting the SK Innovation batteries, the faster
Mm-hmm.
charging. A new model, a 23 model year is going to hold value a little better than a 22 naturally. You're getting the most of all the better charging curve, the redesigned interior. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally like a center console, but some people like the armrest, so that's, I guess, personal preference. But I think all in all, the American built, the Chattanooga built ID4 is got a lot of upgrades on it at this point. That, like you just mentioned, we're not sure if and when they're coming to the old ID4s.
Yeah, it is. We're still waiting to find out. We're still waiting to find. So anyway, these are things that are in my mind. I'm hoping to find out if and when. My car's obviously in the shop for a couple of weeks, but then hopefully we'll get it. Mine is one of the earlier ones, so it should also be getting the update sooner. But no word from VW. I am going to reach out to them over there. I've been traveling like crazy for the last few days, so um, I'm going to get into start working on that in the next in the next day or two. Um, I want to know if I'm going to get these things like the Parkers. I can't imagine using it, but I'm curious to see whether or not that functionality will come over to my vehicle. Sorry, into my old vehicle with new software. But speaking of, new vehicles, here we are in what, day 10, day 12 of Tesla standard range 3 ownership. How's it going?
Used autopilot a couple times last night and got some phantom braking, so I'm already getting the full Tesla experience at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I did notice, I was down to 3% today, and the Tesla still has full power even at 3%. So that's refreshing, because coming from the Polestar, it starts limiting power at about 15%. So big swing on. We know it's all software, that there's just different buffers built into the battery, but it was nice to have the car drive the way I want it to. On the flip side, and another nice thing about it too is when the battery's charged to 100%, because with the LFP battery, they recommend to charge it to 100%. The
Yep.
Tesla now you can have the regular friction brakes supplement the regenerative brakes. So when you're at 100%, obviously regen's severely limited, or especially here in
Mm-hmm.
the cold weather. So now it'll always drive, the way you would expect the vehicle to drive, because obviously that's certainly a safety issue for someone who's not too familiar with the car. expecting to get regen, and there's no regen there.
No, no, absolutely. Oh, insofar as essentially one pedal driving is disabled.
Right, right. Because
You're not just it's not that regen's disabled. It's that you shouldn't accept that the standard way of driving, or what might be your standard way of driving, is just not going to work in those colder, fully charged conditions.
right.
Interesting, interesting.
Something that I hope Tesla would fix sort of soon. So, Teslas for a while now have not been coming with their mobile connector. And so I, of course, ordered one. And the way they did it is as soon as I took delivery of the vehicle, they shipped the mobile connector, which I still have not received yet. It's actually supposed to arrive today. So 10 days later. And, there is the supercharger network around here, but you would think that it would make sense for the delivery centers to just have a stockpile of those. So when somebody buys a car, plop one in the trunk if they ordered it, and they take the mobile connector home with them that day. But
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you. I'm guessing that um, they have it. The shipping is done by a different company. They outsource those warehouse operations. It's not Tesla's in-house things. I can't remember who it is who sent me mine because obviously, yeah, there was that crazy time back when I bought my ID4. So April 2021. Did I have my charger before that? I might have done. I can't remember. That's right, because I had a Jesla. I had one that somebody had made. So it was a Tesla with a J1772 end on it, and I sold that because they were worth. I sold that for like $400, and then I bought a Tesla travel charger with all the cables, all the bonus cables, whatever you want to call it, the 50, 30, 40, the weird ones.
they charge a lot for that now.
Yeah, and I made money on that deal. I made money on that. That was rather amusing. But I had a question for you, Joe. I noticed you're wearing an Apple Watch, which I've not noticed before.
Hmm.
Is this? Yeah, look at this. I'm not saying Joe's a copy, but mine's charging because I was flying all day yesterday and I didn't charge it up last night. Is it a coincidence that I saw a thing the other day? I haven't actually read it, that you can now open and close. You can use your Apple Watch as a key.
I have not tried that yet, but I just stumbled upon that yesterday, and so I haven't had time to fiddle around with it. But and this is the cellular version, so I'm wondering if that. And what's funny is I went out over the weekend, where I left my phone at home, and so I had to actually use the credit card to start the car, and yeah, that'll be interesting to try to mess with and see if I can get that set up. Something else, since you mentioned chargers, we've always been big proponents of saying the most cost-effective, high-quality charging system is to get a mobile connector and then a J1772 adapter if you have a non-Tesla. And this still is true for now the wall boxes, or what do we call them? Wall connectors. If you go to Tesla's website, it's $350 for their 80 amp, wall connector. But they charge $550 if you want it with a J1772 plug on the end.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, to be fair, the 80 amp adapters are a little bit more expensive because they have to have thermocouplers built into them.
But most cars, other than like an F-150 or a Hummer, I'm not familiar with too many cars that can take that kind of power.
No, it is. Although even
Teslas only charge at 11 or 12 kilowatts as well.
You know what? I'm going to say this. I had to charge up the. I think the e-tron has some kind of variable charging in it, even on the AC. It runs at multiple speeds, and I get it through the Juicebox app, and I'm still trying to work out. Sometimes it will go at 11, and I'm like, I rate that down to 40 amps. That shouldn't run at 11. That should be running at 9.5. But it's been quite variable. Anyway, we'll save that for another episode.
Well, but I can actually jump onto that as well. I have a charger here, an old 3.6 kilowatt charger that I've had in my parents' back garage for a very long time. Whenever I was using the Polestar with that, since it actually provides the data, it was always pulling 14 amps. Now I plug the Tesla in, same charger, and it's pulling 17 amps on what should only be 16. So not sure. I had just figured that the power was a little bit by the time it got to the back garage, a little bit low. But the Tesla's claiming it's getting 17 amps out of a charge I've only seen deliver 14 before.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, as we're talking, I just found out apparently I'm meant to be. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Apparently, I'm the featured speaker at a security conference, and I know that I'm going to be on the other side of the town doing some of my stupid jokes. So we'll see which one of those two wins. Yeah, these things is interesting. But here, so you've been charging, you've played with autopilot. How are you feeling about your decision?
Happy so far, just from the perspective of, I've been owning cars for about a year at a time, trying to make a bunch of content about them. And, I think it's definitely going to be more helpful in the future too, to whatever car I get next, being able to compare it to a Tesla, since Tesla is the, number one selling EV at this point. And the Model 3 rear wheel drive is still a very high volume seller. I think it's actually the highest volume Model 3. I'm pretty sure last time I saw numbers, but what's interesting too, here we are in the 10th of January, and they still have not messed with any pricing on their website. So
Not here, but they have, and we don't talk about this, but they made a lot of changes in China, and they've also talked about those changes in China and why they've done. And what they're talking about is that COVID's over. Not if you read the press, and I'm not talking in China. It's got its own issues, and funeral homes. It's its own thing. But they're also talking. A lot of their costs have come down for materials and things like that. So what they're saying is that yes, you might have paid and picked up yesterday tough shit, because this is going to be the price, for the next quarter. We know where our cost base is going to be in terms of staff and materials. So, and then they're also talking about the market. Now you can decide which of those is going to be more.
I've already seen some of the clickbait stuff out there of that populates in my YouTube feed of like Tesla inventory ballooning, right? Tesla full of cars. Well, then we go to that EVO website and there's 300 cars across the country. So it's like, if there's 300 more than they're used to having, yes, but
yeah, it's its own thing. So
one more thing to mention about the car is it's definitely a very good build. I'm not sure how Tesla's been lately with that. I knew this would be a good build because it was a demo vehicle, and they always choose, they always make sure their demo vehicles are sorted out very nicely.
They're like, oh no, this one feels like a demo. Sorry, Joe. There's something wrong with me. But anyway, it feels like a good build, you were saying.
Yeah, 1,000 or 1,500 miles in, no creaks and rattles yet, but that'll be definitely something to keep in mind, because at 10,000, the Polestar had no creaks and rattles. That was a very, very well built vehicle, and the ID4 got a little creak and rattle out of the back hatch that I think was actually due to where the piece of plastic where the logo is, part of that light. That happened when it was like 110 degrees.
Yep, a lot of people. I have that little crack, which I don't think is meant to be there, but we'll see. Joe, quick question. So, did you get 18 or 19-inch wheels on yours?
18. Didn't want to spend the $1,500 on that.
Okay, I was just.
Plus, I saw a set of Martians you can get for basically the 1,500, just over the 1,500 of what Tesla was charging for their rims, and Martians are pretty well reviewed.
No, absolutely. So what we were going to talk about today, boys and girls, is time to value. And so Joe and I,
I see where you're going here.
Well, Joe, here's the reason. So we've both done road trips in Teslas. And I mean, rip and run road trips as opposed to just long, let's go get lunch road trips. And we're going to talk some Tesla stuff now, and then I'm going to be doing a road trip on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. Yeah, today's Tuesday. So on Sunday, for reasons I don't entirely understand, I will be driving most of the way to Seattle, to a place called Puyallup. And then I'll be driving back, as I'll be leaving here at 5:30 on Sunday in the morning, and I'll be leaving Puyallup at 5:30 on Monday morning to come back because I need my head examining. But we're going to talk about the value, and so if you're not, we're not going to do share screens. We're just going to talk about this stuff. I might in the edit put something in. Who knows? Depends how lazy I'm feeling later on. But Joe, you're going to look at some trips you did with the ID4 and with Polestar, and then what it's going to involve for you with Tesla.
Yeah, so I thought the fairest way to do this, because when I've gone to Disney, I went two different routes. One with the ID4 was different than the Polestar, so I couldn't really look at that in detail. And when I've gone to Vegas or whatever, that's also been slightly different. Well, I haven't taken the Tesla to Vegas, I should say. I haven't taken the Tesla anywhere yet. So what I did was I put into Better Route Planner all three vehicles from Denver to Las Vegas and figured we could look at that trip. It's 750 miles is the total journey. So I ran the numbers for what the VW would be, which is, it takes a little bit longer than the Polestar because the Polestar is a touch less efficient, but a touch better on the charging curve. And then we put in the Tesla, which is, very ambitious on its range goals. But so far since I've been owning it, I've been getting about 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Even a touch more at times, which has been, and especially here during the winter, the heat pump I've certainly been able to recognize the improvement of that.
No, and so what does the difference look like?
With that said, it's 50 degrees here today, so I don't know what's going on with the world on January 10th, 2 weeks after we had -8.
It is, it is. Everything's a little bit crazy right now.
So, according to a Better Route Planner, we'll do with Volkswagen first. It says the total travel time would be 13 and a half hours. It said it recommends doing 5 charges, which would take 2 hours and 45 minutes. 2 of them being quite big charges. So a 42-minute charge in 42-minute charge in Green River, and a 41-minute charge in Salina, Utah. So, interesting that it wants me to do that deep of charge because we typically have done the charger hopping a little bit, especially going through Utah. I've been pretty successful with the charger hopping, but I also know that Electrify America reliability has been a little suspect lately, and I know a Better Route Planner takes that into effect.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, actually, because that's factoring in things. So we'll stay off that for the minute. It is interesting, like Green River, which is crucial. You can't skip Green River. It's not possible to Spring is the one to the east.
Grand Junction.
Yeah, you can't.
And then Colorado Springs.
Yeah, Colorado Springs. You cannot. You can do Colorado Springs to
or Glenwood Springs.
Green River. You cannot do. You cannot do the other one to Salina. It's just not. It's just too far.
Yeah, and the killer too is it's very difficult to skip Grand Junction because you'd have to do a super deep charge in Glenwood Springs, and there would have to be no weather conditions.
None, and the wind up there. That is when you're crossing, and it is brutal up there. 50 miles an hour head on is normal
speed limit. Yeah. So, and then the problem is Grand Junction. That charger is about 10 minutes of a detour at least to get to.
Oh, and when Kyle, I mean, when you did the Electrify America, when you did the fully charged thing, Kyle was road tripping the BMW iX,
right?
And only one handle was working at that entire charge.
That was the same when I was there, and the thing I've noticed is I certainly before I leave one charger, I'm looking at PlugShare at the next charger to know what to be prepared for. And PlugShare is, of course, not 100% accurate because things change. But I knew going into it that, okay, there was one handle that had good reports, so I went there and went straight for it. I know that there's a lot of YouTube videos that have been coming out from all the channels lately to show the problems with Electrify America, but and there's no forgiving Electrify America on this. But what I will say is that if you use PlugShare, some of these problems can be mitigated with just knowing which charger to go to when you arrive at a destination.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
And we
So
need
I
more
think
people to properly review on plug share. So many people are like, plugged in my ID4, charged great. They don't say what unit they used. They don't say
that
what speed they got. They
that
don't say
drives
what
me.
handle they used.
So let me add to that. Let me add to that with some, and I tried to reach out to PlugShare before they were acquired. I try to reach out to their product team because I have another issue. When you put a review in, I'm just going to go into one right now. If
Oh,
you go to put in a review, it's only yes or no. Did it work? Did it not work? Now they've put a geolocation thing in now, so you have to be within a certain. If you're using the app, you have to be within a certain distance. I'm like, okay, that has some value, but there's more than yes or no. So unless you want me to put two bad reviews in and then a good review, and no one's got that kind of time, it should be a very straightforward questionnaire. Where did you? And it should be you cannot hit the go button until you've filled in the charger number and the handle if appropriate. So if you put in 4 and 4 is CCS and CHAdeMO, it should then say CCS or CHAdeMO. If it's 1 and they're all CCS, you don't need the question. And they have this data. We know they have this data.
and there should be a star rating of like 5 stars of what you're
No, because
calling.
and so I'm going to push back. No,
Hmm.
because that's subjective. That's subjective. There's a whole thing. When should you give an Uber driver a 4-star, 3-star review? What's that? Because it's up to you. And are you having a bad day? And are you being a bar stool or whatever? No, if you have the data, so they know your car, they know what it's capable of doing. So if you plug in, you don't put in what you're coming and going, but that maximum rate should be indicative of performance. Like if you start seeing every vehicle pulling 36 kilowatts, you know that it's got a problem. Yeah, and then when you turn up, what would be brilliant? You turn up, it should advise you and say, like one of the things I like, one of the things I like about EVgo, it tells you when it was last used. Oh, that unit was used 22 minutes ago. That's great. That is really useful data.
I thought Electrify America has that in their app, unless they pulled that out.
I haven't seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I don't think I've seen that.
We have seen that their app is not reliable, showing what's available.
I did a short video on that the other day. You saw. I assume that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it said that all the chargers were full, and I'm actually there. I had to drive past it. I'm like, I'll just go and have a look. It still says that they're all in use, and there is no one there.
I had that happen at my local charger, and the problem is my local one, none of the card readers work. So I had 3 open chargers because it's a 3 charger unit. Could not use the card reader to activate a charge. App says they're all full, so it's not letting me activate from the app. So you can imagine how I felt that day.
So, so I thought, just in terms of this is quite interesting. Tesla has built out their network so much over the last couple of years. And so before you and I met, what got me started on this journey was a road trip, which I've spoken about, but there was no documentation of it ever taking place because I was trying to do this on a van life camera. I think it was a van cam. It was a dash cam that we used for renting out our van. And which just isn't the best thing. So I did this trip from San Jose to Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is 1,229 miles, all the way along Highway 80, which, yes, you still cannot do on an ID4, unfortunately.
I was actually, I'll
And
punch those numbers in.
well, here's what's interesting. So I looked at what is on. I need my phone. I screenshotted this. And so this is interesting. When I did it, it was a 2018 long range rear wheel drive.
So it was the old lithium nickel cobalt batteries.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
that was a 55 kilowatt hour pack, if I remember right.
I don't remember. Whatever it was, my friend. Whatever it was. Trying to find the screenshot that I just had. Where have you gone? And and I will say that a better route plan was 99% accurate. It was just phenomenal. It always has been. I've never um, that those guys do great. I wish we could get sponsorship just so we could make more out of it. Not to make
Well,
actually stuff, but just like
well, what I'd
it's
really like to see is them almost advertise or find a way to reach Hyundai, Kia, some of these brands that don't have route planning built into their car, right? There's a lot of brands out there that have figured out you can have app like Chevy does it. Chevy has, whether you have your phone in your car or not, it has Pandora radio in the
yeah.
car phone app, right? And there should be a way that you can have a better route planner app natively in Hyundai, Kia, vehicles like that that do not have route planning built onto them.
So here's the in the on the that's the same vehicle. So let me now change it back to the select a new car. Tesla Model 3 long range rear wheel drive, no, and go. And so this is, I just thought this was a really interesting sort of test. Um, and what's interesting is it says hardly any difference, hardly any difference at all. Um, where's it gone? Just oh, it keeps selecting. I might have a glitch in a better route planner, which would be really annoying, guys, if this is
That's
just happening.
that's interesting because I can quickly wrap up on how mine was. So with the Volkswagen, it was estimating 2 hours 45 minutes of charges over 5 charges. With the Polestar, it was also it said 2 hours and 45 minutes over 6 charges, and I think that's just the combination of there's the faster charging rate is offset by the lower efficiency of the Polestar. So if we had a front wheel drive Polestar, it would then probably be a little bit ahead. But the Tesla is only an hour and 53 minutes over 7 charges. And that just, I think, has to be with when you're going from Denver to Vegas, the chargers are really nicely spaced out. And this is one where actually my rear wheel drive would probably be almost the same time as a dual motor because most of these chargers from Denver to Vegas are the old 150 Tesla units. So they're not really benefiting from the 250 speed.
Not so interesting you should say that. So this is I'm looking at what has changed since I did the run. Okay. So with the um, with the long range, so with the 2018 long range, it has the total time being 19 and a half hours, 1,229 miles, with 2 hours and 45 minutes of charging. And just to be clear, this has got, using my usual settings, which is coming in at a minimum of 3% and charging to a maximum of 80. Okay. But starting the day with 100%. And yeah, it says, leaving at 5:30 a.m., getting in at 2 a.m. I can say that's about accurate. That is that is accurate. Um, the stops, there's a little bit of change. It says, the first stop is 20 miles difference for one reason and another. But with the regular battery, the one that you've got, it goes to 3 hours and 54 minutes. So it adds an hour and 9 minutes of charging. Same number of chargers. Most of them are the same because there isn't a huge amount of choice. Places like Winnemucca, Elko, West Wendover, Thule. So that's one difference with the long range. It has you go all the way to with the long range. It has you go all the way to Salt Lake City. Whereas with yours, it says, no, stop at Thule. Because, again, you're at that point in the pack. But that's it doesn't have you do an extra stop. It just says, no, you're going to stop sooner, and then you'll go to Everston. So, those are the things. Rock Springs, Rollings. A lot of these, by the way, are 250. In fact, no, and then there is one change. It says at Laramie, so it loses a charge at Laramie. It goes straight from Rawlings. The long range at Rawlings charges 3 to 71%, and it gets in at 4% into Cheyenne. But with yours, it goes 3 to 60. So it does a 19-minute charge instead of a 20-minute charge. But then it has to do a 26-minute charge in Laramie. And so you have to say, but that's why we say it's value. What's your time worth? And here you can actually put a number on it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. If people are considering whatever vehicle they're considering, it definitely play with a better route planner because there's so much information there. Plot out some of the trips that you plan on doing. I know one of the things that I ran into, my family goes up to upper Michigan sometimes or up northern Wisconsin. One of the trips that I did with the ID4, we went to Glacier in Montana. And so, the quick numbers on that is that trip was almost 2,200 miles each way in the ID4 because I had to go all the way to Green River and then shoot all the way north to Glacier. That same trip would have been 1,500 miles in a Tesla just because of that charging network in North Dakota.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing that trip, then that's not not necessarily relevant. So it's really about seeing what's the charging network for you. I know for me, there's a Tesla charger at my local grocery store, but there's Electrify America chargers at my local Walmart. So it's whatever fits your life better.
Have you got the CCS adapter yet, or is that on its way to you?
I need to. I'm planning on getting that here in the next couple of weeks, but just been a little behind with work.
So let's talk about the network very briefly, because this is one of the interesting things for me. This trip next week. So it's 821 miles from my house to the hotel that I'm going to be picking my little one up in. And if I was to use the ID4, my ID4 with its 126 kilowatt limit, and assuming it was aerodynamically pure, again, not missing its front left fender. What's interesting is it says 14 hours and 40 minutes with 2.5 hours of charging. And I would say that's about right. Again, that's, never charging above 80%, coming in low. So like Wairika, it has me coming in at 4%, leaving at 76. Sutherland, 5%, 79. So pretty much on, and that, those are deep charges. It says 38 and 39 minutes. I've actually found those to be a bit less than that. I find those on average to be about 30 minutes, but anyway, especially if the pack's warm, it's perfect. If the pack's warm but the weather's cold, that's a perfect situation. However, I'm not doing that because there is no way on hell's earth that I'm charging at Willows. Willows has become, in the kilowatts of did a review on it, has been one handle working out of 8 heads for weeks now. And so the idea of, I can stretch my car all the way to Anderson. It's 232 miles with 234 miles of range. I've always said, and I've tried it to do it, and I've never made it because my bladder gives out before the car does. If I'm peeing, I'm charging. But yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to add a charge in there because I'm not trusting Willows. It's just not. That's just not happening.
So it's funny you mentioned that. That's why again I reference that I try to make videos that are. I don't try to make too many videos that are, you know, headlining broken chargers. By using PlugShare to plan my trip when I was coming from San Diego to Phoenix, I was charging in El Centro, California. That's the first stop or last stop, however you want to call it, after leaving San Diego. And normally you would want to go to Yuma, and then I believe it's Gila Bend, and then you're into Phoenix. Well, Yuma only had one charger working of like the four or six, whatever it was, and then Gila Bend only had one handle working as well. And when I was looking at um, PlugShare reviews, many people complaining of lines because when I was in El Centro, all the chargers were full and there was a line, and that was all the chargers working. So I knew that there's probably a line down the way if there's this many people traveling. From El Centro, though, I was able to jump up to Quartzsite, only added about 10 minutes of actual driving time, and I had no problem then with arriving at a charger. Granted, only two of those four were working, but there was no wait, and then I was able to get to Phoenix with one more stop in, I think it's was it Goodyear or Buckeye? There's one in Buckeye, but just using trip planning rather than just with a gas car. That's the one benefit: is you get in the car and drive. You don't have to think about anything. With electric cars, you got to put a little more thought in it, and certainly plot out your route and look at some of these chargers on PlugShare. That's kind of how we met, and that's makes a big difference in your trip experience. And so you're not one of the people stranded on the road when chargers decide not to work.
So let me come back to that value. This is where it's interesting. So we're 2 hours and 31 minutes of charging to get from here to P Wallop, Sumner, whatever you want to call it, and 6 charges. I'm not taking my car. I'll be taking the e-tron on this one, the e-tron SUV. Same number of charges, same locations, like it's the same ones, but it drops it to 1 hour and 57 minutes. So it takes half an hour off. And again, like your Polestar, what's interesting is it charges harder. It's a consistent. That thing pulls 150 from 10% to 80%. But it's thirstier as well, substantially. It's a third more thirsty. You get 3 miles to the kilowatt with the ID4. You get 2 and change at 2 point something with the e-tron. But what I will be doing, why hopefully it might be an interesting video, I have to pay for my charging with the e-tron. So I have a little bit of charging left over in its account. It came with a couple of thousand kilowatts on the card, and we're going to polish those off because it's expensive in California. Once I cross the Oregon border and I don't use Electrify America, they charge by the minute. And that is where the e-tron I remember in Texas, I paid for when I picked up that car in Atlanta and I was driving through Texas. I drove through Texas and into New Mexico. I think, no, am I missing somewhere between Texas and New Mexico? I can't remember. All I know is I went through El Paso, La Cruces. What's the connect? Can't remember. Deming or Lonsburg was the last place I charged in Texas. And then I got into New Mexico and I had to pay by the kilowatt. And I went, I went from $6 to charge the battery. And I mean $6 to charge the whole battery. That thing charges like a beast, to like $25. I'm like, ooh.
That's what's interesting is normally that's a state by state rule, as you're mentioning. You left Texas and you went to New Mexico and they flipped over. But what's funny enough around here, if I still had complimentary charging with EA, with obviously the Volkswagen and the Polestar. Had I not, EVgo around here charges by the minute, whereas EA charges by the kilowatt hour. So EA is 32 to 43 around here cents per kilowatt hour, but with EVgo, I want to say it was 26 cents per minute was the rate for if you're the member rate or whatever. Well, and that's for the high speed. So I'd be pulling over 2 kilowatt hours per minute. That's cheaper than charging at my house.
Yeah. The for the most part, they are what they are. In California, the price is the price, but there are a number, and I think it's because we have these tiny little regional utilities, and they have different CPUP rules, PUC rules. So, like the EV Go at Vacaville, which is right on the freeway, charges by the minute, and it's a 300 kilowatt. Like, I charge there on the way home. Like, I will charge there. I might not need the charge, but I will charge there. Just so because it costs less than at home when you're pulling at that kind of rate. Now, if you're a Bolt, it's not going to help you. But if you've got something that pulls, and yeah, once I get to Oregon, so I'm going to try some. I want to try the EV Go Fast Connect. So I've set the e-tron up for that. So we're going to try the. We're going to use an EV Go somewhere north of Corvallis. I can't remember where it is. And then on the way home, we'll see what the traffic's like and what the weather's like. We may come back the interesting way through Bend and Klamath. So anyway, that's a video to come from my channel. But yeah, just something we just thought, you know what, today we're doing an easy episode and just talk about time and value and those kind of things. Anything else you want to talk about in today's episode, Joe?
I'll have some Polestar range tests coming out the next couple of weeks, so I guess probably touch base on the drastic impact of cold weather. That's probably something we can talk about next week, and how heat pumps should be an option on every vehicle. Shouldn't be that you need to jump into a $5,000 premium package just to get a heat pump.
I would agree with that. On that bombshell, pardon my yawn. I know I managed to go the whole episode without yawning, guys. I've been awake. Yesterday I was awake for 27 hours. I flew all the way to the East Coast and back in a day, 4 hours on the ground, kind of crazy. So I'm surprised at my own good behavior. So please don't mention the yawning in the comments. I know you will. I know you're going to. But here's what I will say about the comments. Guys, if there's subjects that you want us to cover and go into more depth and do some research before we turn up and do these things, that's why this what we're talking about today came from a comment about the difference in times and you know what the true cost of that was. Then put a note in the comments. Go to the YouTube channel. Put a note in the comments there. Right now, I still don't see the comments in the podcast channels from Spotify and Apple. We're working on that, but go to the YouTube channel. Put your comments in there, and we'll thank you in advance for your great ideas, which hopefully we can turn into content you want to listen to on your own road trips. On that bombshell, Joe, be safe in this crappy weather.
Take care until next time.
Have fun.